Well, let's start with my boys, the Canes, the Hurricanes. Yes, they go into the swamp. They drain the swamp. And they beat the absolute brakes off of Florida. This was a great game for the Hurricanes to show in a relatively, what's appearing to be a relatively weak ACC that, hey, this is ours for the taking. This is ours for the taking. Cam Ward, it was a little bumpy at first. He had that early interception, rolling out, throws across his body, kind of shorts arm the side throw, easy pick, enemy territory. The defense stepped up huge in this matchup. They played really good football outside of, well, that Montrell Johnson, 71-yard touchdown. They played a really good game. The defense played a great game for the Canes. Cam Ward cleaned it up. I'm still a little queasy about his pocket poise. There were some cases where Cristobal, he kind of created a moving pocket there for Ward to kind of mitigate what he does in the pocket, but it was a phenomenal outing. Like after the interception, he just turned it on, and it was just utterly phenomenal. I had a great time watching this game. Florida, we know the schedule's hard, but this wasn't a great look. Graham Mertz probably had his worst game as a Gator, eventually gets hurt later in the game, and they had no offense. No answers. No offense, no answers. Again, aside from the big run, did what? I'll tell you what, they did nothing. Hurricanes looking good to start the year. I'll talk about Tetairoa McMillan's insane performance, though I do want to comment real quickly about Arizona. Defense has got to clean it up. New Mexico put it on 39 points. Not going to be good enough to win the Big 12. Not going to be good enough to win the Big 12. Before we continue with today's video, guys, football is back. The NFL returns this weekend, and Underdog Fantasy has you covered. Not only if you sign up using promo code BROSHMO will they match your first deposit up to $250, but they have a ton of specials for this weekend's festivities. For instance, they have a free pick in the form of Travis Kelce, over or under 0.5 yards. They even have a Thursday night kickoff special where you can get 30% profit boost if you hit. Hell yeah. And I mean, the folks at Underdog, they're after my own heart, as they got college football covered as well as they got discount for the dogs. Let's go. So take advantage of these specials currently going on at Underdog Fantasy. And if it's your first time signing up, use promo code BROSHMO to take advantage of them matching your first deposit up to $250. But as always, bet responsibly, bet within your means. Let's move on to Clemson, Georgia. This game was 6-0 at halftime. And I was like, hey, Georgia, they're letting Clemson, they can let Clemson back into this ball game. Clemson offense just got to come alive at some point. It's just got to come alive. And I remember saying at half, doesn't feel like they ever will. I think this could be like a 27-10, a 30-10 ball game. They end up not even being able to get the touchdown. And this wasn't on just Cade Klubnik. Cade Klubnik played a relatively all right game. Like, he didn't really put the ball in harm's way. Sure, there were a couple instances here and there. There were some inaccuracies with the deep ball. But this team is devoid of stars. Like, Antonio Williams went out, balled out, looked good. Brinstool? Oh, he had a drop here, but like, I thought they were going to target him a bit more. He ended up having all of maybe like 6 targets in the game. Let's take a quick gander. Brinstool ended up having 4 targets in the game. Excuse me, but he did have the drop. Had 3 receptions, 26 yards. Like, there's no playmakers on offense. Poor Maffa, he was trying to do the best that he could, but Georgia won the trenches. Simple as that. And you know what? The defense played a good game. They played a good game, but with the ineptitude of the offense, you're going to keep putting the defense out there. They can only do so much. They got gassed in the second half, and Georgia ran away with it. They were able to click. Now, it doesn't appear to be a go-to playmaker right now on that Georgia offense. I think Beck's most targeted guy was Lovett, but yeah, he was able to throw it around and get the job done. I think he targeted 10 or 11 different pass catchers in this game. Frazier had a solid game running the football, had a couple of drops in the receiving game. It's not his shtick. It is what it is. What he did on the ground, though, was pretty darn good. Georgia, they don't necessarily have time to kind of figure it out on offense, but I mean, honestly, for a team that was feeling them, they were kind of feeling it out in the first half, and they were like, you know what? Let's just come out, let's play clean football. They did. The defense, they did their job. They were wonderful. Malachi Starks, insane looking interception. And again, I want to give props to the Clemson defense. They held out for as long as they could. It's just the offense never showed up. And you know what? I'm not going to say the offense is piss poor for Clemson. I don't think that's the case. Georgia would make a lot of teams in the FBS look like this. They would make a lot of Power 4 teams look like this. I think when we get to the ACC play, the offense will look a bit better, but they are devoid of talent, of playmakers offensively, unfortunately. I don't think that's going to be good enough in the ACC, but it might. Again, I don't know. Do I put all my eggs in the Miami basket? I never put all my eggs in the Miami basket. I'm just waiting for disappointment. It's happened year after year. Never won the ACC. But we'll see with Clemson if they could clean it up. Ignoring the transfer portal for so many years might be starting to catch up with Dabo. Dabo might be a man out of time at this point. It just might end up being the case. But Georgia, I kind of have faith that they'll right the ship. They'll figure it out on offense. They get Trevor Etienne, I think, back next game. He kind of said he was suspended indefinitely, but most people that I've talked to said it's like a 1-game suspension. Not worried too much. All right, let's talk about Idaho, Oregon. Some of these top 25 teams came out and it didn't look clean. And you know what? It won't always in week 1. It won't always look clean. This is week 1. This is kind of the feeling out process. You're trying to iron out some of these wrinkles you got, whether it's offensively or defensively. Defensively, Oregon was great in this game. You had many, many different players step up and show out. We go to the defense real quick. You had DJU's brother, Mateo. He balled out 5 pressures, 2 sacks. You had Jordan Birch, 5 pressures, 1 sack. Like, the defense played hella good. But offensively, you had people looking at the box stats wondering, what the hell is going on? This team is putting up yards. They're putting up statistics. Why aren't we scoring? And I remember it was during I think that Miami Florida versus Florida stream, because again, we did a watch along. We'll be doing watch alongs this weekend as well. We're going to do, of course, Michigan, Texas. We'll talk about Michigan in a second. And we'll be doing NC State, Tennessee, because I want to see Nico in real time. But when you go to that box score, you start looking at the play-by-play, and you're like, oh, they're moving the ball. But they have they had some drives end just abruptly. And I went back, watched the game, and it was a little uninspiring. Like, you look at Dylan Gabriel, And it's like, oh, 380 yards, 2 touchdowns. He had a great game. Never put the ball in harm's way, and an adjusted completion percentage of 87.5%. But average depth of target, 4.3 yards. Okay, so, I mean, that's Oregon. Put the ball in the hands of your playmakers. Let them make moves. And just play mistake-free football, right? Just play mistake-free football. Yeah, playmakers didn't really come through. Like, Tez had a good game. Terrence Ferguson had a really good game. Evan Stewart, he was like 3 receptions, 15 yards. All right, we'll wait and see. Again, this team's ironing out some of the wrinkles, but they were able to move the football. You had, I think, a couple, maybe 2 or 3 drives end on like turnover on downs. You had a missed field goal. They had a fumble. Like, the team moved the football. Oregon moved the football. They just had drives end abruptly. In Idaho, they never. While, like, yeah, okay, Idaho definitely struggled, as they should. This is Oregon, ranked 3 Oregon. They did enough to stay in the ball game. Overall, the cream rose to the top, as Macho Man Randy Savage once said, as the talent rose to the top and they were able to seal the game. But they definitely got some areas they got to iron out offensively. All right, let's keep moving. What we got? Texas, they ran through Colorado State. You had a lot of these cupcake matchups. Alabama rolling through Western Kentucky. I think Milroe had all of 9 passes. Ole Miss ran through Furman. Everybody loves the NFL draft, and I know you want to be familiar with every potential prospect that your team may draft. So I got good news for you. My draft guide is available for purchase. It is good throughout the entire draft cycle, and it updates through the season regularly. You'll get my current evals and rankings on hundreds of different players with player backgrounds and analytics. It also contains combine and pro day numbers, as well as my notes from the Senior and Shrine Bowl. You can purchase it for a one-time payment of $30 on PayPal, Venmo, and now I have the Cash App. Follow the link in the description and be sure to include your email because it is a Google spreadsheet. That is how I share it with you. So please don't make me hunt down your email. Just don't do it. Anywho, it's a great purchase and it's a great way to support the channel. Let's talk about the Sunday or the Saturday night game. Notre Dame, Texas A&M. Offensively, ugly. This game was ugly. This was a defensive showdown. It felt like who would make the least mistakes would win the ball game, and that wasn't necessarily the case because Notre Dame kept shooting themselves in the foot. When they'd start moving the football, they'd start committing the penalties. Were they all good penalties? They certainly weren't. Certainly weren't all good penalties. I don't think the refs had a great game here. I don't. But, man, going into halftime, 6-6. Holy stinking moly. Okay, maybe we got something. Maybe the offensive will come alive. Maybe the quarterback play will get better. It didn't. I'll talk about Connor Wigman later on. Not a great performance. I get it. He missed almost all of last season. Only played 4 games last year. But for a lot of people, like, he was a very hyped up prospect. And I think he will look better later in the year. Just wasn't a good game by him. It's downright awful. Not like Riley Leonard put up a great performance. If he wasn't doing it with his feet, he wasn't really doing it at all. Like, Bo Collins came out, was a good pass catcher for him. Where was Mitchell Evans? I guess he's still nursing the ACL injury. We ended up seeing a different tight end by another name. Who was the tight end again? Because I think it's number 87. I don't have his name down. Oh, that's right, Flanagan. He ended up being the most targeted tight end on the night. Even Eli Raridon, he wasn't targeted much. So, like, okay, from a pass catcher perspective, Notre Dame's got some things to work on. Riley Leonard's got some things to work on. The run game for both teams kind of what decided this. And Notre Dame's run game ended up coming out on top, as you had both Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price have good games here. Love ends up going for 14 carries, 91 yards, a tutty, 10 forced missed tackles, yards after contact, 4.14, 4.14. That's probably a better way to say it. Price, 8 carries, 44 yards. He kind of had the money shot, the long shot. He brings a little explosiveness to this offensive, or to this Notre Dame offense. 6 forced missed tackles, 6.38 yards after contact. There we go. And I mean, the tackles, I'm not going to say the tackles were perfect for Notre Dame. They're young, they're inexperienced. They took their bumps and lumps, but they played a better game than their counterparts on the other side. A&M had some struggles. I do think A&M's running back there, Le'Veon Moss, played a really good game, did what he could. But at the end of the day, A&M couldn't do anything. They just couldn't do anything. Both defenses played a great game. Both teams, quarterback play needs to look a hell of a lot better. Fortunately, the Notre Dame offense was able to take advantage of Riley Leonard, what he could do on the ground. Ended up having 64 yards rushing. You look passing for Riley Leonard, wasn't great, 73.1. Just a completion percentage. That's not a terrible number. That's not a bad number. When your average depth of target is 5.5 yards, it's a horrible number. It's not great. It's like he doesn't have the horses to create after the catch. But a good job by Notre Dame. The defense looked great. The offensive line looked encouraging. And to be honest, this was probably one of their hardest games of the year, and they open it up. The schedule does get a little bit easier. Doesn't mean that there's that they don't have some potential losses left on the schedule, like USC suddenly looking a lot scarier. You have Louisville. You don't sleep on Louisville. They blew out Austin Peay. You have Georgia Tech. I believe in Georgia Tech. What can I say? But let's keep the sucker moving. Penn State, West Virginia. I only saw, not highlights, but I saw like a condensed version of the game. Didn't go through it play by play. They had the rain delay. West Virginia, from what I saw, they just shot themselves in the foot a ton. Allard played a good game. The offense for Penn State looks pretty darn good. I love the OC there for Penn State, former Kansas OC, did great. Let's talk about Michigan, Fresno State, because I was very fascinated. I wanted to know what the hell exactly was going on here with Michigan. And they're in trouble this week against Texas. I don't know how Michigan will score consistently. Luckily, they got a hell of a good defense. They kind of rode the defense in this game. I mean, the defense ended up scoring points, like Will Johnson with the pick 6. Came up big. But golly gee, the offense. Where art thou, offense? See, Gojo's mad about it, right? Right, Gojo? Come on, buddy. He's frustrated. Gojo's ticked. Where was the offense for Michigan? And it all starts at the quarterback position, obviously. You had Orgy. He ends up losing the job to Warren. Warren, it wasn't great. It wasn't out there making big-time throws. He was just trying to keep the ball safe. But there's no wow to this offense. There is no wow to this Michigan offense. Like, they're not going to do it from the quarterback position. And you were like, well, last year they were a team that didn't have to get it done through the quarterback position. Well, hey, JJ, he came up in clutch moments. In some of those bigger games, he came up in clutch moments. But they at least were able to ride a good running game. And they just don't have a good running game. They replaced 5, technically kind of 6 starters on the offensive line. And you saw it. And it's painful. Donovan Edwards. Where art thou, Donovan Edwards? 11 carries, 27 yards, no forced missed tackles, 1.64 yards after contact. That's an ugly number. If you're below 3, then it's like, ugh. Okay, it's not the end all be all. If you're below 2.5, get the hell out of here. What the hell's going on? And it's not like he did it in the receiving game. What, 2 receptions for like no yards? 2 receptions for no yards. Donovan Edwards, where art thou? The main back there was Mullins. He had 15 carries, 92 yards, 5 forced missed tackles. Relatively solid game. But there's no explosiveness to this offense. This is why we saw no scoring. And this was against Fresno State. Don't sleep on Fresno State. That's a good team out in the Mountain West. That's a good Fresno State team. Should have never been this close for this long. Mind you, this game was 13-3 entering the fourth quarter. Not great. I don't feel good about Michigan playing Texas, even though it is in Ann Arbor. I don't feel good about it. I don't think they don't have the horses to keep up with Quinn Ewers and company. You just don't. Defensively, you're kind of hoping, can they get... Now it's like defensively, it's not just can you get it done, Michigan. Can you maybe help create some points for us? Michigan was good. Josiah Stewart had a great game. I'll talk about him a little bit later. But yeah, man, rough showing for the Wolverines, and now you have to take on Texas. It doesn't feel great. Doesn't feel great. All right, let's move on to the Sunday game, and I'll briefly go over the Labor Day game because I'm not gonna lie to y'all, there ain't much to talk about. There's not much to talk about. All right, so LSU USC. It was a bit lower score than we expected. That both defenses played really good football. They played really solid. Then in the day, it came honestly down to which team was more willing to take chances. And that answer is USC. And when I talk about the difference, I mean, we're talking about a very minuscule difference. Like Garrett Nussmeier, he went out there. He played well. 28-9 completions on 38 attempts. 78.4 adjusted completion percentage. 1 big time throw. Interception. Not on him. That's all right. That's fine. Miller Moss, on the other hand. Miller Moss, not going to say he was perfect with the football, but he was willing to go out there and not necessarily make mistakes, but he was willing to go out there and win the game. He ended up having 5 big time throws. Hell yeah. You do you. 81.8 adjusted completion percentage. They played winning football. You had LSU. They had drives constantly in third down situations. Checking down. I hated it. Kyron Lacey played really well. Had a big first half. And then how do you not utilize that guy in the second half? Not saying they didn't throw his way ever in the second half, but they just didn't utilize him enough. But if anything, I feel very encouraged by both defenses. USC put freaking Gentry on the field more. This guy was everywhere. He was freaking everywhere. And he's just someone that you rotate in. Played only about, 50% of snaps? Just under 50% of snaps? That's disgusting. Keep that guy on the field. Gentry's a freaking moneymaker for you. Go do your thing. But ended up having Anthony Lucas, big game. I will say Emory Jones kind of it wasn't a great showing to start the year. I'm sure he'll look better as the season goes on. This is week 1. I try not to be too critical week 1 when it comes to prospects. But yeah, man, this was a money performance for USC. They needed this. LSU, their better days will come. They have an easier schedule coming up. I believe their first real game of consequence, or at least game that probably say, okay, maybe they lose this, will come up against Ole Miss, and they even have a bye, I believe, before that week. Yeah, they do. But they get Nicholls State this upcoming week. Then you get another USC, South Carolina, who, hey, had to win it at the end of the game at home against Old Dominion. Yeah, I'm not taking the South Carolina team serious, at least offensively. They get UCLA. Ooh, UCLA played Hawaii pretty close. I'm just saying. And then Southern Alabama. Before they have to travel, not even travel, you get Ole Miss at home, and you're coming off a bye before that. So I'm feeling pretty darn good. We're going to talk about our fallers. Yeah, that's right. We got a faller this week. Who would have thought? It's freaking Florida State. Listen, I could forgive the loss in Dublin. I really can. I liked Georgia plus 10.5. That's a scrappy Georgia team. Georgia Tech, excuse me, putting a little too much respect on their name. That's a scrappy Georgia Tech team. But then you go back to home and you lose in the fashion you did to Boston College, to Bill O'Brien and his debut there with Boston College. Yeah, you started the year 0-2. It kind of sucks. I'm pretty sure this is like the second or third time Mike Norvell has started the year 0-2 with Florida State. It's not a good feeling. This isn't the death nail for the Seminoles, whether it's winning the ACC and the college football playoff. It's not the death nail. The ACC is very winnable. I think you could lose 2 and make the ACC championship game. Problem is, now you've lost 2 conference games. So you're going to have to beat Clemson and hope they lose elsewhere in ACC play. You're going to have to beat Miami and hope they lose elsewhere in ACC play. The funny thing is, I think that's a likely thing to happen. The ACC is going to be very competitive because I don't think they're very good in comparison to some of the other conferences. Obviously, we're talking Big Ten, SEC, and dare I even say the Big 12. So again, not the death nail for the Seminoles, but I mean, if you really wanted to start behind the 8 ball, you sure did. They could not stop the rushing attack of Boston College, and Boston College's defense did a hell of a good job. Let's go over some of my teams that just missed the list. UNLV, man, beat down on Houston, 27-7. Love it. At no point was that game in jeopardy. They played really good football. Watch out. Everyone's talking about Boise State in the Mountain West. We should be talking about UNLV, in my opinion. I think they're a really good team. They use the transfer portal pretty darn well. Tulane, they opened up the year with Southeast Louisiana, and they blew them out 52-0. They should be one of the favorites in the AAC. You got NC State. This is one of the teams that, yeah, they need to go back to the drawing board and iron out some of the wrinkles, because they played a relatively tight game for 3 quarters with Western Carolina. Not exactly a good look. They do eventually win 38-21, but you're going back to the drawing board, and you're going to have to do so quickly because Tennessee now comes to town. That Tennessee team, they looked darn near perfect in their cupcake game against Chattanooga. Georgia Tech, they're 2-0, beating Georgia State 35-12. Watch out for them in the ACC. I think they're going to be that. I initially was like, I think Georgia Tech's probably going to be like a 7 or 8 win team, man. Watch out. They might be more. Oklahoma, this is probably the team that is the most on the outside looking in. I know that they're a ranked team for most people. Again, when I do my top 25 at the beginning of the year, I actually go through the schedule. So strength of schedule matters to me. Opposed to how other people do it, where they're like, oh, this team good, this team go here. Nah. Let's project how we think this thing might look at the end of the year. And Oklahoma is one of those teams that I was like, I don't know if the toughness of an SEC schedule if they might end up being like an 8-win team. Well, they looked good against Temple. The road's going to get harder. Let's see what they are made of. Let's go ahead, get to my top 25. Starting with 25, LSU. I'm not going to drop them just yet. They lost at the end of the game to a good USC team who we'll talk about in a second. This is a good LSU team. I'm not going to drop them out. I'm not. They lost again at the wire. So here they are at 25. Better days lay ahead for the Tigers. Like I said, they have a very promising schedule in the next few weeks before they head to, before they host Ole Miss there early on in October. Toledo, they went out, did their thing, beat Duquesne? Is that how you say it? But they blew them up 49-10. USC with the big win in Vegas over LSU. Love to see it. Got them here at 23. They were another one of those teams that they were basically the Oklahoma of the Big Ten for me. I had them as an 8-win team on the outside looking in. So, hey, maybe they're a 9-win team. Maybe they're a 10-win team. Who knows? UTSA, they got up early against Kennesaw State and they kind of took their foot off the pedal. They ended up winning 28-16. Again, took the foot off the pedal, but wish they kind of won a little bit prettier than that. But it is what it is. Oklahoma State, they went out, did their thing, beat a very good South Dakota State team. Keep in mind, South Dakota State is the new North Dakota State of the FCS. They win 44-20. They also return the most starters, I believe, in college football, both offensive and defensively. So got them here at 21. They do have a bit of a rough patch in their schedule, though it's very winnable. I think the Big 12 is very much up for grabs. Moving on to 20, I got the Kansas Jayhawks. They went out, did their thing, took out Lindenwood, 48-3. Jalen Daniels, keep in mind the guy, he missed the later half of last season. He did look a little, we're going to call it rusted. But I imagine he will get better as the year goes on. Devin Neal had a great game. Clemson here at 19. Talked about him earlier. The offense, there's some concerns. Defensively, though, this is a very good squad. And I think it'll be good enough in the ACC to compete for that title. Got him here at 19. Kansas State started out slow against UT Martin. I was like, okay, Kansas State, when are you going to turn it on? What's going on here? Eventually they do. They end up winning 41-6. SMU, they looked a hell of a lot better than they did in week 0. Keep in mind, they ended up winning on the go-ahead deep pass to RJ Maryland against Nevada. They come out against, Houston Christian, win 59-7. Great. Still running with 2 quarterbacks. Don't love that. And then at 16, watch out. Tennessee is legit. Maybe. Again, they beat up on Chattanooga. Let's see how legit they are. They travel to NC State. Don't sleep on NC State. I know they didn't look perfect in week 1. I still think that's a very solid team there. So, big game for the Vols coming up this week. 15, Louisville. They move up. They blew out Austin Peay 62-0. Great. The offense looked phenomenal. This was a team that brought in a hell of a lot of transfers this offseason. My Miami Hurricanes are now up to 14. You love to see it, and they are the front runners for the ACC. Hell yeah, Tyler Barron had a big game for him, especially after Ruben Bain went down. Haven't looked on the status of his injury. Hopefully it's nothing serious, but Miami looked great. They looked like the easy front runners for the ACC right now at this juncture. Arizona. Okay, offensively, no worries. Defensively, get it together, bruh. Get it together. Liberty. Oh, man. Okay, so Liberty, I get it. It was a messy game. They had the rain delay. They ended up beating Campbell 41-24. This is, I think, this team has one of the easiest schedules in college football. I think they should be a shoe-in to win. What is that? Conference USA? You got to look better than this. You return your quarterback and Salter. I still believe that they're the group of 5 team that ends up making the college football playoff. Oregon here at number 11. It wasn't pretty. I talked about it. I imagine they'll iron out some of those kinks. Kinks? Let's call it wrinkles. Maybe I don't want to say the word kinks. But I believe they'll iron out some of those wrinkles going into next week. That is a good football team through and through. Let's go to the top 10. As Penn State, great showing. Ends up beating the Mountaineers 34-12. They honestly, West Virginia shot themselves in the foot a ton. But they played great football. The defense looked great. Offensively, a lot going on there that I like. Watch out now. They should be in the running for the Big Ten. Texas, big game this weekend. A big opportunity to move way up my list. If they could get that win against Michigan, and honestly, it's looking a lot more likely. I feel really good about Texas this week. And now there's a lot more concerns with Michigan than I had going into the year. To be fair, probably should have had those concerns going into the year when you're replacing that much on the offensive line, when you're replacing your first round quarterback. Yeah, I probably should have thought that the offense would have taken a significant step back. But I also believe in the talent, and I just don't think Michigan could right the ship this early. It's going to be interesting. But Texas, they're going to be going to Ann Arbor. Big win there. Honestly, will move them up. Missouri, they won handedly against Murray State, 51-0. I think it was 51-0, or was it 51-3? Now that I think about it, I can't recall. It was indeed 51-0. That's right. Oklahoma beat Temple 51-3. Okay, we got Notre Dame. Talked about them and their cockfight there with the A&M Aggies. I like this team a lot. The schedule's not too crazy for them. I think even if they lose 2, they probably still make it. But at this point, it's like maybe Louisville, USC. Those are the teams. Even Georgia Tech, don't sleep on them. If they come out with 2 wins there, I mean, they're a shoo-in for the college football playoff. Utah came out, did their thing, won 49-0 against Southern Utah. Cam Rising looked great. 5 touchdowns. Love to see it. Top 5. We got Ole Miss here at 5. And yeah, they looked great. They destroyed Furman. 76-0. Everything was running perfect, as it should. You know what? Alabama, same. First verse, same. Or what is it? Second verse, same as the first. They basically did what Ole Miss did with less points. They end up winning big, though. They end up winning 63-0. The offense looked great. Defensively, they looked phenomenal. Michigan, golly, you know what? In my beginning season polls, I think I had Michigan way too high. I'm telling y'all, that Fresno State game really shook me. This is a team that's going to have to rely on their defense, and we could see something similar to Georgia Clemson, where the defense is able to hold back and mitigate this Longhorn offense in the first half. But if the offense for Michigan never shows up, that defense is going to get gas and the game's going to get away from them. So we'll see. We'll see what they got that Clemson didn't. This is a home game in Ann Arbor. Ohio State, they were a bit slow out the gates, but eventually things worked out. They end up blowing out Akron 52-6. Okay, sure. Didn't look great early on offensively, but I'm going to be honest, I'm not too worried. They've got their stuff together. Again, those cupcake games are there designed to kind of iron out the deficiencies in the offense. Like, okay, let's get some of this, whether it's, again, timing, assignments, dumb penalties, play calling, iron some of that out. Georgia, listen, even when this team was like offensively was trying to just figure it out, they were still head and shoulders above Clemson, and by no means do I think Clemson is a bad team. I think Georgia, especially if they could find a playmaker. We kind of thought that, and I mean, they got a variety of very good players, but like, is it going to be like a Kobe Young that steps up? Is it going to be like could it be a Oscar Delp? Those stinking, who was the linebacker? Lucky? He was the guy that ended up being like the leading receiver there. It wasn't Urasek. It wasn't Delp. It was presumably their tight end 3. It was kind of nuts. But there's your top 25. You let me know what you think. I think this is a good looking top 25. I know some people are going to think I have some teams too high, some teams too low. Again, I do this before the season. I take into account the schedule. I go ahead, I project the schedule. This is what I got early on, and week by week, we will adjust it as needed.